And we're live.
Hello and welcome to the live stream. I'm Maribel Lopez, the founder and principal analyst at Lopez Research. And I'm really excited to be here today talking about what is going on in multi-cloud, what happened at VMworld. I'm joined by Vittorio Viarengo, who is the VP of Cloud Solutions at VMware, and Betty Junod, who is the Senior Director of Cloud Solutions at VMware. And I'm just going to jump right in. But before I do that, I want to let you know you can ask questions, and we'll be taking questions and comments throughout. So there has been a lot of talk about multi-cloud at VMworld. Actually, all of my companies or clients at Lopez Research are talking about multi-cloud. And there's certainly been a fair amount of confusion around what's happening with different people's portfolios. You made many announcements across your entire portfolio about multi-cloud. So I thought maybe we could summarize some of VMware's multi-cloud strategy. And you also threw out this new term, cross-cloud services. Vittorio, you want to kick it off and talk a little bit about what's going on with multi-cloud, cross-cloud, and how VMware is changing?
Yeah, thank you, Maribel. So at VMworld, we announced our cross-cloud services portfolio, which is a portfolio of cloud-native services to help companies build, manage, connect, and secure native cloud applications. So we live in a world where 80%, depending on the research that you look at, 80% of companies have 2 or more clouds. And initially, this happened by accident. Developers, they always be developers to do whatever the hell they want. And over the years, they adopted all these different clouds because it allowed them to go fast and deliver a lot of value to their organizations. Think about the pandemic without cloud. It would be unimaginable, right? Instead, we managed to not only survive the pandemic, but many technology-driven companies really did thrive in the pandemic. But with multi-cloud adoption, there are challenges because every cloud brings their own stack. Google will bring their stack to build, manage, secure, and monitor applications. So will Microsoft and AWS and so on and so forth. So at VMware, we thought hard about this for the last 5-6 years. First with VMware Cloud, and now with cross-cloud services. And what we realized is that this is what we do. We make stuff that was not designed to work together. We've done it, throughout our history. So our first, kind of legs of our story history was virtualization. Then we went up in the stack and we built the software-defined data center. And now we think that we can add value into this very heterogeneous world for the next 10, 20 years by bringing cloud-native services that allow people to deal with the multi-cloud challenges.
Betty, you want to weigh in on the whole multi-cloud, cross-cloud discussion?
Yeah, and so I think what's important here is that, like Vittorio said, the whole world, like the state of the industry and the market is now multi-cloud. Customers are, approaching multi-cloud as I'm choosing best of breed, the right service that I would like for my business, my application. And with that brings a new set of challenges. So our approach is really about how do we help across this increasingly heterogeneous environment, because it's not about forcing people to then change some of the decisions they may have made if it was the right decision for that line of business. But how do we help help them improve that, get a handle on it, so they can better manage and scale and secure those applications and environments over time.
Great. One of the things that I've been thinking about a lot is that VMware as a company has changed quite a bit. As I see VMware now, they really want to try to create a glueware across different clouds, and maybe that's what you're really getting at with this cross-cloud strategy. But what's something that you think is really new or different about VMware? Maybe something that wasn't evident that came out in the whole VMworld landscape that we had experienced recently.
I think that the one thing that many people didn't maybe realize is that for us to add value in the public cloud and to implement this vision of having cross-cloud services that help people build, manage, connect, and secure applications is that we don't require our hypervisor or vSphere to do that. Right? So let me clarify that for a second. So over the last 5 years, we built out VMware Cloud. And VMware Cloud is built on the vSphere Foundation, VMware Cloud Foundation, and allows our customers to build to take their applications that are running on-prem, expecting the enterprise abilities that VMware has always delivered, and now being able to move these applications into any cloud and modernize them. And it's an amazing value proposition. But with cross-cloud services, we're going one step forward beyond that and saying, build your applications on Google and deploy them on Google, deploy them on whatever Kubernetes distribution you want. But you can use our cross-cloud services to have a single place to build the application and then feed all these different Kubernetes distribution. Once the applications are up and running natively in the cloud, we give you vRealize and Cloud Health to go monitor the application, see the performance, see the cost structure of those applications, then being able to connect them securely with our NSX stacks, and then secure them with our security stack. So this is the part where I think the market hasn't digested. We are committed to the native cloud, and we believe we are uniquely positioned to do that because of our heritage and our DNA. We strive in heterogeneous environment, right? We've done it throughout our career and our history. Now, the multi-cloud, we believe, is the most heterogeneous environment that we have ever seen. And that's where we can bring our DNA and our investment, our innovation to help customers deal with the challenges of native multi-cloud.
I know that Betty and I that we were having this conversation about there are all these different types of Kubernetes. When you're saying open, there's all these different ways of doing things, right? So it's not as simple as one might have originally thought. Betty, what are you thinking about in this new space?
Yeah, and so I think to add on to Vittorio's point and to talk about many ways to get Kubernetes, many ways to get containers, right? So our whole aspect here is that we're taking an application-centric approach, right? And so where's the customer today, meeting them where they are, and then helping them get a handle on those, right, and drive value. So they may already have a Kubernetes distro in place, or maybe they're leaving that up to their application teams to choose which Kubernetes distro they're going to use. Maybe some team is really deep in open source and they want to roll their own. Maybe some team hasn't decided yet. Well, you know what? VMware does have an opinion. And for those who haven't decided, we have those for you. If you are using a mix of cloud-hosted, cloud-managed Kubernetes environments, let's say for development, and choosing something else for your your production runtime, great. You're going to have this heterogeneity. We've seen from data from customers that their maybe ops teams makes different decisions than what developers want to spin up quickly and spin down for use. We're looking at how do we help manage the life cycle of those Kubernetes clusters, right? And make sure that the important part is governance, right? How do you have consistency in policies and configurations so that they're secure, conformant? How do you make sure things like the supply chain, right? There's a lot of talk of, this is secure supply chain, so that, and making sure that that goes quickly. It all starts from, code to build, right? And then from there down through managing the contents of the software packages down to deploy, and then where are they deploying, who touches it along that path, and observing the application once it's running. So we're adding value there because having a consistent pipeline, let's say, like the supply chain and all the controls there, allows for more heterogeneity in, where are they building, and then where are you going to deploy to? It gives the freedom there because you're having the right level of controls and governance.
I like where you're going with this example because, one of the things that we've been talking a lot about is the balancing risk and agility. And you gave a lot of compelling customer examples throughout the VMworld event around FedEx and Toast and CVS Health. And, are there other things that customers are asking you to help them with as it relates to balancing risk and agility?
Yeah, it's really with I think the risk and agility. Agility is about how do I maintain the choice and speed with that, and then also it's I'd say it's a mix of like managing risk. So it's like how do I have the right level of governance as people move from shift more things left and give more freedom to the builders, right? But then it's also like how do we have the right level of visibility and tools for optimization and alignment so that all this technology use is fundamentally to drive business, right? So we have, can I map that? I'm not just thinking about a tech stack, but what can I make sure I'm always right sizing and optimizing in my tech stack so that there's a performance and a security aspect of the application to support whatever, whatever revenue or markets that's going to serve. I'm gonna, you named up some good examples, but we've also I want to bring up an example of one of our customer segment, right? They're using Cloud Health to get a good handle on what they're doing with their environment because it's all running in the cloud. And not only are they using that just to gain visibility into their use and right size and optimize, but they're using it to manage the margins, right, of delivering that service to their customer. So they know each customer they sign on is going to be bringing in, ingesting so much data so that they can, provide their, segment service. But how can they use Cloud Health to, understand like what is the margin that they make for each customer? And this can have, that's when you can get the right kind of business alignment, right? So you're managing business, your business objectives. And then you can do more interesting things on like, once you know what your average margin is, like how much freedom can I get for discounting or other things for, attracting and maintaining customers?
Yeah, and to follow up on that, one of the interesting things that you mentioned about this concept of data governance, we're seeing a lot of organizations now move into edge and edge computing, and I think there's this whole new world of data visibility, data governance that people are going to have to navigate as they're going across multiple clouds, but even as they're in a single infrastructure to think about that differently. So that makes a lot of sense to me. One of the things that I personally find challenging as an industry analyst, and that my clients are also finding challenging, is that everyone makes it sound like they have an easy button for adopting multi-cloud. We've got all these tools and you hit this and this works and let me show you a great demo. But we all know that there is some complexity. And one of the principles that you originally started out with in the discussion around VMworld and the keynotes was that you were there to minimize complexity. So from what you're seeing, what are some of the low-hanging fruit opportunities that companies can go in and show a quick win in minimizing complexity? I don't know who wants to take that, but just the discussion is basically how do we think about it?
I'll say something maybe a little controversial. I think that multi-cloud is an easy button. The reason why we ended up with multiple clouds is that they were easy to adopt. Developers just swipe their credit cards and built an application, then deployed it. The problem is, right, now that we have multiple clouds, how do we control the cost? How would we deal with all these different development environments? How we secure all this stuff? And in the past, our approach was like, hey, don't worry. We just rehost everything on our hypervisor. We create this very fluid environment that allows you to, doesn't matter what hardware you're using, what storage you're using, we're going to make it work. In the cloud, that approach is not going to work and going to scale because the applications are already deployed out there. And so that's where cross-cloud services come in. And so to me, the long-hanging fruit is one, everybody is trying to figure out what is their assembly line for applications. And if you have an assembly line for applications with security built in and having the latest distribution of whatever stack you're using for each of these multiple clouds, that cost is going to be very complex, right? Once the applications are deployed, if you have multiple different stacks to manage them, it's going to be a challenge. So what I think the long-hanging fruits are where the value is, which is one, how you accelerate the development and deployment of applications. Two, how you manage the applications out there once they are deployed so that you can tune them. Because if even as an ISV, being in smaller companies and that build their stack on unnamed public clouds, the next thing you know is, oh my God, costs are out of control. What do we do now? our margin are going south. So what do we do? And so if you multiply that problem across multiple clouds, forget it. So I think the Tanzu application factory and then the cloud health as a way to manage the cost is two great places to start as far as I'm concerned. Betty?
Yeah, I'll agree. This goes back to like, when we say like it's complexity is like, we're not going to, in this, we're not minimizing the number of clouds they're using, right? And they don't want to go back. Customers don't want to go back to a time before when they had like very hard and fast gates, right? Because that's when a lot of shadow IT and other things happen. But the most important part is like getting the visibility, right? How do you minimize complexity? Well, first, I just need to know what's going on. Because then once I start to see, be able to see across like what everyone's doing, then I can focus on like how much, what are the important things I need to do? So this really goes back to this idea of like visibility, observability, and then governance. And then if we have give the tools so that they can set the right amount of like, guardrails, right, from the get-go. Can I put enough guardrails so that within those guardrails, my teams can kind of freely develop, freely deploy? Then I know that I have met all the things that I need from a compliance standpoint to remain secure and protected. And then I manage exceptions, right? Because developers may or may not know like all the details regarding the infrastructure, and they don't want to, right? And so there's other people who care about that. But if there is a specific need or they're trying to deploy to a specific location, and that's outside of the norm, that's okay. But as long as you can have a consistency in guardrails and governance, and provide observability and visibility reporting and such across a disparate multi-cluster, multi-cloud environment, then it gives the right level of intelligence for the operator to be able to basically manage that complexity efficiently.
And Maribel, one thing that we need to work with analysts like yourself and the press and in general is that for any company that's been so widely successful in one environment, it takes a while to be known in a new space, like in this case, in the multiple cloud and all that. But there are some things that people don't realize. Like, for example, we're one of either the top or the second contributor to the Kubernetes stack. And the person who wrote the first version of Kubernetes works at VMware. So we have tremendous assets from a technical perspective to go and be successful in this multi-cloud native world.
Great. Okay, so I think we only have a little bit of time left, but I would be remiss if we didn't talk about Tanzu at all. I got quite a few questions sent in from people, some very specific about Tanzu and Kubernetes grid, some about Tanzu versus VM and vSphere. So there's like lots of different angles, Tanzu and AWS, but maybe we can boil it up. Like I remember when we started with Tanzu, it was kind of something very discrete, right? And now it seems like there's a much broader definition of what Tanzu is and what it could be. So maybe we could talk a little bit more in general. What's the role of Tanzu in a multi-cloud conversation?
Yeah, so if you go back to like the cross-cloud services, Tanzu is our flagship within the application platform side. And like you said, it started out as being something very discrete. Tanzu is a family of products, right? It has everything to help accelerate the development as well as the ongoing operations of cloud native applications, right? New microservices style applications. So there are a lot of individual parts in there to help along that under the family brand of Tanzu. With that, we're looking at those is to help standardize on like we said, the DevSecOps layer, right? Provide all the developer tools, build services, et cetera, application catalogs, registries, the Kubernetes runtime and management and observability, service mesh, et cetera. So everything you need for an entire cloud native ecosystem. Now, the important part is that we're taking an approach is that the world is fundamentally multi-cloud, multi-cluster, right? Kubernetes constructs is about many small clusters. So that has, and so oftentimes what you see is like when you have many clusters, they could be from different distros. So with that, Tanzu is not only looking at it, Tanzu is also set up to be like modular. If an application team has already decided and built an application on a certain Kubernetes distro, well, go ahead, that can plug right in, right? So we're making it modular so that we have an opinion, so that, and to say that from Tanzu perspective for cloud native apps, you need this entire set of capabilities. They're delivered by, it's a family of tools. We have integration points between them so that if you do use it, if you're in mission control, you can directly go into view observability, et cetera. So we've made those connections for you so that it's easy. However, if you already have a tool in a certain area, or if you have different clusters, those can easily be plugged in. So I think that's where, because the portfolio has grown, people are like, what is it exactly?
Yeah, think about how powerful that is, right? We're telling developers, yeah, you already made your choice of Kubernetes distribution, go ahead, we're not going to change that. But how about from a DevOps perspective, a management perspective, we give you visibility in what's going on, so you can, take action and make sure that your environment is in good shape. So that's, I think it's, we talk about this concept of freedom and control, which, at VMware, because we're a very technical companies, whenever we come out with these marketing terms, Raghu makes sure that there is technology behind it. Otherwise we get in trouble. So this is kind of an example where we put technical meat behind these marketing claims.
Excellent. And so to wrap up, I know we're over time, but there are two other things that the audience wants to know. And one is, Vittorio, do you play those guitars? And two, does anybody have a famous focaccia recipe they want to share with the audience?
So one thing that you should know is that how good a musician is in reverse proportion to the amount of money spent on the instrument. So that tells you everything you need to know.
Those are all display instruments. I think that's what he's saying.
Then I'm a virtuoso.
Yeah. So I'm not a virtuoso, because if I was a virtuoso, I wouldn't have to compensate with all this gear. In terms of focaccia recipe, yeah, I make a mean focaccia. I grew up as a baker, but also Betty does. But my recipe it's actually one of the few that I have in English. It's on simplebaker.com, so which is the English version of my Viva la Focaccia blog. But Betty kicks my behind when it comes to sourdough.
And I got into the sourdough, I want to say pre-pandemic, but now everybody else is on board. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I'm looking forward to getting recipes from you both. And I want to thank you for sharing some insights on what happened at VMworld and what's next for VMware. Thanks, everybody.
Well, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.